We got an African American man who was killed by 7 police officers, but also 3 hospital employees. Come on over here with me, I'll tell you about it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up out there, my anonymous brothers and sisters? This is Corey with No Names Media, and I'm here to bring you another important piece of information about what's happening in our country right now. So what I want to share with you today is the death of an African American man at the hands of 7 sheriff's deputies and 3 hospital employees. This young man's name was Irvo Otieno. Now, what happened on March the 3rd, this is when the confrontation with the police began. It says that morning, Henrico police responded to a report of a possible burglary and encountered Otieno. Police said in a news release on March 10th, police officers along with the county's crisis intervention team put him under an emergency custody order due to their interaction with and observations of him. According to Virginia law, a person can be placed under an emergency custody order when there is a reason to believe they would hurt themselves or they could hurt themselves or others as a result of mental illness. So it was clear from that first interaction with him exactly, it doesn't mention exactly what made them come to the conclusion that this young man was having mental health crisis. His mother was also on the scene, and she was telling the police not to be rough with him, not to be violent. He just experienced a mental health crisis. So I believe that's where they initially got the information from, that this man was not naturally impulsive or violent or aggressive or strange, but he was having a mental health crisis because his mother let them know, like, hey, just be aware of that. Get him some help, get him to a hospital. And so that's what they did. So it continues to say that, so the interaction with the police was on the 3rd. At around 4 p.m. on March 6th, Otieno was taken to be admitted to Central State Hospital, a state-run mental health facility south of Richmond, by the Henrico County Sheriff's Office, according to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. It's not clear why deputies transfer Otieno. So when they first encountered him on the 3rd, they took him into custody, and then they took him to a local hospital, to be evaluated, where he became physically assaultive towards police officers at the hospital. At least that's what the report from the police said. And because of that assault on police officers, he was held on 3 counts of assault on law enforcement, disorderly conduct in the hospital, and vandalism. From that point, after the evaluation, hospital employees said that he's fine, he can go. He received his medication in the hospital. Then the altercation happened. They took him to jail because of that violent interaction with police, but they did not allow him to take his mental medication. So on March 6th, he was taken to be admitted to Central State Hospital, a state-run mental health facility south of Richmond, by the Henrico County Sheriff's Office, according to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. It's not clear why deputy transferred Otieno. So they don't know why they took him from jail to the mental health place in the first place. Hopefully that information comes out. I'm sure it will. Maybe he was showing some signs of mental disturbance in the jail, threatening to harm himself or something like that, but that'll come out. So anyway, during the intake process, Otieno became combative and was physically restrained. The attorney's office said, citing that state police investigators were told that he died at the hospital during the intake process. Virginia State Police were called to investigate his death at 7:28 p.m. And this is on March the 6th, 3 days after the initial interaction with him still. Alright, so Kirby, who has not seen video of the incident, said the deputies had engaged in excessive force. Well, obviously, you have 7 police officers and 3 hospital workers all piling on a man who's restrained in handcuffs and leg braces for over 11 minutes, and you smothered him to death. I believe they know. These people know. You have 3 hospital nurses, doctors, or whatever they are, who should be medically trained to know what will and wouldn't restrict a person's breathing. And if anything could do it, it'd be 10 people on you while you're restrained with your hands behind your back, which is already a stressful situation on your lungs. But I'll go ahead and continue with the article before I give my full assessment of what's happening. A quote by his mother says, quote, "His mother was basically crying out for help for her son in a mental health situation. Instead, he was thrust into the criminal justice system and aggressively treated poorly at the jail," unquote. The Henrico Fraternal Order Police Lodge 4, the local law enforcement officers union, issued a statement on Facebook saying they stand behind the deputies. Of course they do. They will stand behind police 100% all the time, at least publicly, regardless of how wrong these officers are, regardless of the crimes they commit, except when it was that time that black man shot that white woman by accident in Minnesota. They didn't have the police union or Back the Blue then, did they? They never have Back the Blue or these police unions standing out in support of police officers when they're black and they're facing similar situations of killing a civilian like white people do. Like, where's the union people, the police union, in the death of that brother who was beaten to death over that traffic stop? I didn't hear the police unions come out and support none of them. Anyway, policing in America today is difficult, made even more so by the possibility of being criminally charged while performing your duties, the union said that. Police officers, I remember a few years ago when the whole thing with George Floyd happened and they wanted to defund the police. And the police in New York City did a press conference pretty much saying that they're going to refuse to do their job if they are able to get arrested if they harm a civilian. They literally did a news conference saying that they're going to refuse to do their job, and then all of a sudden you see a spike in crime in New York City, a lot of gun crimes, random acts of violence for no apparent reason after that. And my hypothesis on that is that these police officers have connections with these informants and criminals in the streets. You know, a lot of them are paid informants, undercover, working with the police, doing underhanded things for these officers, and these officers just tell them, hey, I need you to go out there and cause some mayhem. And then all of a sudden mayhem happens, as if people were just itching to start shooting each other once the police did a press conference talking about they weren't going to do their job anymore. That's why a lot of people, a lot of politicians are afraid of the police, because they know that the police have a grip on the criminal underworld, and at any point it seems like the police officers can pretty much let them loose and let them run wild. And that's what's happening in New York, especially with the spike in gun violence out there. So, alright, that's the end of this article. So I'm just going to give you a brief rundown again of this situation. So on March the 3rd, the police officers received a call of a possible burglary taking place. They encountered Irvo Otieno, African man, and at some point it became obvious to the police officers that he may not necessarily need jail, but a mental health evaluation, because the call he wasn't actually breaking into some place, But whatever actions he was doing that made a neighbor or someone call the police, it may have seemed that's what he was doing, because in the article or nowhere in the videos or any research that I've done stated that he was actually committing a crime of trying to get into someone's house. So anyway, the police encountered him. They noticed that he was having a mental health issue, and his mother confirmed that. His mother made sure she let the police know, hey, my son is not doing anything wrong. He just needs some help. He's not there right now mentally. He needs his medication. He needs to see a mental health doctor. Surprisingly, and a good thing, those particular officers did manage to get him to the hospital. At some point during his stay at the hospital and after his evaluation, he became combative with the police officers. And because of that confrontation with the police officers and staff at the hospital, that's when he got jail charges placed on him: assault on a police officer, assault on a hospital employee, vandalism, disorderly conduct. And that's what caused him to go to jail from the 3rd to the 6th. During that time from the 3rd to the 6th, it's not clear yet 100% for me to honestly and guarantee give you factual information on how he was treated while in jail. But at some point during those 3 days, the police took him from that jail, took him to a mental health facility. When he reached that mental health facility, he became, as reported by the police, he became combative again. And during that combativeness, they had to handcuff him, put leg restraints on him, and for some reason, after they had all that on him, still piled 10 people on his body. And then it's also reported that they were on him for over 10 minutes. Honestly, it was 12 minutes. That's what it's reported, that 10 people huddled on that man for 12 minutes. In the video that his family, the surveillance video his family and attorney were privy to, one of the officers had a knee on his neck, and attorney Benjamin Crump said it was very similar to the way George Floyd died, with the knee on the neck by Officer Derek Chauvin, who killed George Floyd. And so, in that video, I guess that surveillance video of how he died was enough evidence for the state's attorney to go ahead and file charges against all of those sheriff's deputies and those 3 hospital employee workers. Most of them, or probably all of them, I highly doubt will get the charge of second-degree murder. But they definitely at least a few of them may get the charge of manslaughter or involuntary homicide or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and show this video to you guys. It's clips from the press conference his mother, I believe his brother, and attorney Benjamin Crump had about the situation, okay? Let me make sure the volume is fine before I even start it. Alright guys, here we go.
Treated like a dog, worse than a dog. I saw it with my own eyes on the video.
The family of 28-year-old Irvo Otieno, who died in custody, has now seen video of the fatal incident.
At what point do we stop preserving life? At what point do we consider mental illness a crime?
Prosecutors say Otieno was smothered to death by 7 sheriff's deputies and 3 hospital employees, restraining him during intake at a mental health facility. 7 sheriff's deputies in Henrico County, Virginia, were arrested Tuesday and charged with second-degree murder.
Why would any law enforcement officer put a knee on the neck of a person who is face down, handcuffed, and restrained?
Otieno was arrested March 3rd after police say they responded to a burglary call next door, took him to the hospital for evaluation, where he became, quote, physically assaultive. After a weekend in jail, where prosecutors say video shows Otieno was pepper sprayed, punched, and mistreated, he was brought to the Central State Mental Facility on March 6th, where authorities allege he became combative.
In the videos, are never confrontational with them. He is not posing a threat to them. He's not violent or aggressive with them.
Today, prosecutors announced 3 staffers at the mental health facility have also been arrested on second-degree murder charges.
Ultimately, some Central State people as well on top of them. No one assisting.
In court this week, an early glimpse of the deputy's potential defense. One lawyer citing this.
The ongoing issues that they had been having with this individual with regards to his disorderly conduct, with regards to his aggression, with regards to his resistance.
But his family says what he needed was help. What do you want to see happen to these deputies, either of you?
Justice. I would like them put away, if you ask me, for life. That they don't see the light of day again. What they did to my son was horrific. Horrific.
We've reached out to the Central State Hospital mental health facility for their response to 3 of their employees being charged with second-degree murder. We have not heard back. We have also reached out to the attorneys identified so far for the 7 deputies who have been charged. We've only heard back in detail from the lawyers for one of them, Deputy Bradley Diss, who told us that their client looks forward to being vindicated in court.
Based on your reporting, Maggie, how is the...
So, I apologize for the coughing, guys. I haven't been feeling too well as of late. So, now, one thing that stuck out to me was what one of the officer's attorneys said was that what he had basically a recent history of being combative and being violent, and therefore what they did, their restraining him was justified, was necessary. But the thing is, you did that to a man who was already restrained. And that goes back to what I said before in a previous video, how police officers will shoot you 8 times and still put you in handcuffs. It's insane. So for whatever reason, regardless of how combative this man was, it was clear that he needed mental help. I mean, for Christ's sake, you took this man to a mental health facility right out of the jail. After sounds like you beat him up and tortured him a little bit while he was in jail over the weekend. So he's combative and everything, but you all managed to get him subdued. He's in restraints. Why in the world are you still piling on him? Why in the world was it necessary to have a knee in this man's neck for that long, especially after the entire situation with George Floyd? I just don't understand. What I believe, what even me, I was guilty of this at one point, but what people tend to do is to put police officers in a different category of human being than the normal, common, everyday person, because they have on a uniform. And you see someone in a police uniform or a military uniform or something like that, and ideas of character play out in our head. When you see a police officer in a uniform, your natural instinct and inkling is to believe that this is a good person. He or she would never intentionally harm a civilian. They only do what they have to if the situation calls for, and only then. But what we fail to understand is that the very same people who are police officers are the very same people who are just walking around normally in the general public. And a lot of people normally in the general public are very sick individuals, very petty individuals, rage-filled, revenge-filled, and need I say racist individuals. Every type of person in the general public who you would want to avoid, I guarantee you, is on someone's police officer's payroll. Sick, evil, crazy, deranged, psychopathic, and sociopathic people are in every police department, because local governments don't do enough to weed out those sorts of individuals who will become a detriment to society if given that sort of power. These people are insane and they're sick. To have 10 people on an individual for that long who's restrained, and I'm certain if he could have talked, even if he didn't talk, it's pretty obvious, especially for three medical workers to know that this man probably can't breathe. Even if if it's too much pressure on his lungs for him to say it, common sense, and even the thought of, hey, we don't want another George Floyd situation, to happen. We don't want another situation like the brother out there in Brooklyn or New York who was choked out by police because he was selling loose cigarettes, whose death started the term "I can't breathe." We don't want another one of his situations to happen to anybody else. He's restrained. Let's get off of him now. And that's another point. I hate to keep bringing this up, but I will every single time. Every time I make a point in a previous video, it carries over to the next and the next and the next. Like I also said, so first I said that even if police shoot you 8 times, they still will put you in handcuffs. And I also said that when police have you restrained and down on the ground, why do they just stand around? Why do they just sit there? Either they make you sit on the ground while they just looking at each other and talking, instead of just apprehending you and sending you right to jail. If there's really no investigation to be done because it's obvious that you're guilty. Like, what was the point of finally getting this man restrained only to spend 12 more minutes suffocating him? Unless enough of you, it may not have been all 10, but enough of you was a little bit aggravated, a little bit frustrated, felt disrespected, and your ego was hurt by this man. And a psychic agreement came on and happened in that room, and you all subconsciously agreed that you were going to kill that man. Like always, family, I'm going to inform you, give you updates on this situation. I'm going to keep you in the circle, in the loop of any changes. It's going to be a lot because it seems like they're going to go to trial. So this thing is just ramping up. And I'm going to do my very best to keep you updated on this story and all the stories that I cover. And also give you new information about what's happening in this nation with the police force and keeping an eye on them. That's part of the reason I started No Names Media, and I decided to be as anonymous as I can be because of the topics that I'm going to be covering and that I do cover is dangerous to my health. We'll put it like that. So, all of you out there, thank you for joining me. I hope you all have a good time. Be safe out there, okay? Try to avoid any interactions with the police as best you can. But if you do have an interaction with the police, follow the 3 F's. Don't fuss, don't fight, don't flee. Take care.